Well, good afternoon, Mavericks, and everyone else joining us today. Welcome to our fifth UNO Young Alumni Professional Series webinar. My name is Nathan Hankinson, and I am the new Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement. I am excited to join the Alumni Association team as a UNO graduate and Omaha native. Please know that I am here to help and welcome any questions or feedback moving forward. Now, I do want to acknowledge that we did have some technical difficulties with the recording, and so this intro was recorded after the fact. Now, a couple quick notes to get you up to speed. And first, and I will share my screen here, if anyone that attended this afternoon session would like us to send them a free UNO alumni pin, like you see here, please just reply to the email you received from us confirming registration for this webinar, and we will mail that your way soon. And with that, it is my pleasure to reintroduce UNO graduate Paula Baggiani, owner of Baggiani Consulting, an adjunct college instructor at Metropolitan Community College. Today, Paula spoke with us about self-awareness in the workplace and how it can aid young professionals. Additionally, she shared conflict management tips and ran through suggestions on how to resolve tough situations in the workplace. We are now going to transition to one of her very first slides where she discusses the brief description of the 5 conflict management styles. Again, we sincerely appreciate your patience and hope that you enjoy the webinar. Thank you.
Collaborating is the style you want to get to. The good thing about this, again, is it's going to make all people feel like they're contributing members to that decision. A con can be if you need to make a decision in a snap. This is not ideal because you need to have time to get to collaboration. You need to have time to ask questions, listen, list pros and cons, brainstorm. But if you're under a time crunch, it will be a little bit of a challenge to get to that collaborating style. So if you have the ability to plan ahead, that is ideal. Competing style, if this is the way you typically solve conflict, people sometimes when they hear the word conflict, you think of a winner, you think of a loser. And when you're in business, you have to think, how do I get to a resolution so that both parties are feeling like they are walking away winning? You want both people to feel like that. And the competing style, this is where typically someone who might be in a leadership role just says, it's my way or the highway. And that is going to build resentment and hostility with your teammates. So if it's ultimately your goal to just get your way, it's not going to harness a very good team morale. And so that one, you will see in a lot of organizations where people are competing against each other. Maybe every month they list what divisions are in the top or individuals by sales, and you hit commission based on sales. It's hard to cultivate a strong collaboration environment in a team morale when you know you're against each other each month. But this style does happen, especially if you always want to win and you always want to be ahead. It's going to be hard to cultivate that teamwork and that resolution that we're going for. The avoidance style, a lot of people can relate to the avoidance style. You kind of clam up and you're like, I'm done. I don't want to participate. I'm done. I'm leaving. Whether you physically remove yourself from a conflict or you just shut down, your body shuts down and you just begin to avoid the situation. It's good in the sense that it will not escalate the situation, but it's bad because all these problems are going to continue to be there until there's a resolution achieved. So it will not help those unaddressed problems, and they're going to circle back and need a resolution at some point. Harmonizing, it sounds beautiful and it's wonderful for about 50% of the people, the ones that are getting their way, but the other people that are constantly giving up their desires to make other people happy, they're going to eventually feel like they're taken advantage of, and their ideas are not going to be shared because they're so desperate to make everyone else happy that their own happiness or their own contributions are limited. So it is not ideal. And the last style is compromising. I give a little bit, you give a little bit, and we both make a decision. It's good because both people are getting something of what they want, but it's also not good because both people are leaving neutral. No one's really super happy. No one's super jazzed. We both had to give up items to get what we wanted. So as you look at these, you're going to be able to take the assessment later, but I'm sure that you all have examples of, gosh, I think I lean more towards avoiding, or gosh, I think I'm good at asking questions and building understanding and getting everyone involved. I'm more of a collaborator. So this is kind of a good base for us to start on. And I would like you to take that assessment. I think there's a lot of good reflection that could be had and self-awareness that you can create because of completing this assessment after our session. So what I would like to do right now is I want to kind of get a good base of where we are and where our comfort levels are with conflict. So you can either use your phone or you can use your computer, but we are going to jump into Kahoot. You will need to be able to see my screen for the questions and for the answers, but it's probably ideal to use your cell phone and then look at the computer screen. I'm going to put us into Kahoot and I will give everyone an access code. All right, so our game pin is going to be 4647688, and I'm going to give you a little bit of time. If you don't want to put your actual name in there, that is completely fine. Some of the questions that we're going to ask, we're going to bounce back in and forth with Kahoot. So we're going to look here, then we'll go back to the presentation. So we are going to come back and forth about 2 or 3 times. So just keep your Kahoot up once we finish. We're going to do about 3 questions right now. But again, if you don't want to put your name in, that's fine. When you do answer, you will be anonymous. Good, glad to see some people in here right now. Thank you. I'll give about 30 more seconds to see if we can get a few more folks in, and then we'll get started. And the good news is if you aren't able to get in right away, the access code, the login pin will be at the bottom of the screen, or if you get kicked out, so you can come back. I'll give us about 10 more seconds. So our first question that you're going to see here in a moment, I'm going to mute this for us. There we go. Sometimes that Kahoot music makes me want to get to a resolution. So my resolution was, let's mute the screen. The first question is going to ask you what your comfort level is. And it's a poll, so it'll be low comfort, medium comfort, no comfort, low comfort, medium, you'll see. But I just kind of want to get a gauge on where is your comfort level when it comes to working through conflict. So I have 12 of us in here. We're going to get started. And if you still are trying to log in, that access game pin will remain in the bottom of the screen. All right, so first question. My current comfort level with handling conflict in the workplace is red is no comfort, blue is low comfort, gold is medium comfort, or green is high comfort. All right, so we have, let's see, so about half in the low comfort into medium comfort, and then a couple there on the no or high. So a lot of what today's session is going to be about is how do we use some strategies to help reach a resolution, so that for those 9 people that maybe have low comfort, well, especially for those 5 people that are in that low comfort or even the no comfort, it's uncomfortable having disagreements and having to reach a resolution when we know the person that we're discussing with isn't on the same page initially. It does bring out some feelings of discomfort. And so I think the important thing is to try to access some skills and strategies and methods that are really going to help you harness some positive communication skills, some listening skills with that touch of self-awareness that we're going to get into in just a little bit. Let's get to our next question. This is an open-ended question and your answers are anonymous. What are common symptoms that you might experience when having a conflict? Does your body have any response? Does your mind do anything? What feelings are you experiencing or symptoms are you experiencing when conflict or disagreement is happening? And these answers, like I said, will be anonymous. So when I open up the answers, we will not know who is saying what. Dina, thank you for sharing in the chat box. Pink cheeks, not able to move. Absolutely, your body kind of freezes up. Face gets warm. I think these are all great. I mean, they're not great symptoms, but they're all symptoms that people can experience in that moment of conflict or in that moment of disagreement. And I think just that ultimate feeling of being uncomfortable is what comes to mind. And here in about 9 seconds, we're going to see what some of our, some other folks associate with having, what symptoms they associate with conflict. All right, so let's see, we've got 9 answers. Let's see what we've got going on. Profuse sweating, all right? Heart racing, so you feel your body is doing something. Anxiety and stress, feel flush in the face, kind of like what Vina was just saying, those pink cheeks. Stress, panic, like we see that common word here again, anxiety. That seems, anxiety's in like 4 or 5 of these. Difficulty expressing thoughts, sweating, racing mind, fight or fright or flight or fight or flight. Yeah, like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Do I either exit or do I try to put up my dukes and use my words and get through this? But yeah, that for sure, the heart rate, the perspiration or the sweat, your body temperature, These are excellent examples of what symptoms happen: discomfort, or the opportunity to resolve a conflict and be able to build upon the disagreement. It is an opportunity. That's a great way to look at conflict, is that you have an opportunity to resolve the conflict. It is uncomfortable, and it might be causing you some of these body reactions. But I think for people, and we're going to get into this in a moment about self-awareness, once we realize, we get to a place where we can reflect on our own feelings, reflect on our experiences, we can learn how to respond and use these to our advantage. We know that when we have conflict, if you have a fast heart rate, you recognize those signs and you try to implement maybe some breathing techniques, or you recognize these signs and you try to maybe de-escalate the situation and ask questions to build understanding. But these are all phenomenal examples that you've shared, and real examples of what people go through when they're experiencing that conflict. But I love the perspective, and I think this person that said that conflict is an opportunity to resolve a conflict and build upon the disagreement, I think that is such a mature way to look at conflict, if you look at it as an opportunity. And that's what self-aware people do. They're able, instead of to focus on the negative, they're able to take the mistakes or the problems or that discomfort and say, all right, what do we need to do to get to a resolution? We're going to do one more question right now, and then we'll hit back to the presentation. So here's our final question for this moment. What is the leading cause or causes of conflict in the workplace? All right, so you aren't wrong for those that picked ego and for those that picked a heavy workload. But it is also, it's everything. People who have an ego, who think they have a right to do something and impose their power on others, an ego can definitely cause conflict for your team and how your team perceives you. Your stress levels and your heavy workload, these are all going to be items that are going to contribute to conflict and reasons that conflict happens in the workplace. So we're going to come back to this in a little bit. Let me get us back to... All right, so self-awareness. We've chatted a little bit about that, but what does that mean? It is an awareness of our thoughts, feelings, abilities, and preferences. And like that individual said when we talked about symptoms that might happen as a result of conflict, and that was discomfort, but it gives you the opportunity to work towards a resolution, that is exactly what a person with high self-awareness is going to do. These are some examples of actions that people who are self-aware continuously work on. They can reflect on those strengths and their weaknesses. They know what they're good at, but they also know that there's another end of the spectrum there that they can probably work on a little bit. I can work on my analytical skills. I can work on how I initiate conversation in an uncomfortable discussion. Knowing things that you're not as good at is something that someone who's self-aware can identify. And working on these, writing them down, documenting them somewhere, and then practicing, looking up skill sets to work on. I know what I'm good at, but what can use some improvement? That's someone who has high functioning self-awareness can do. If something isn't working, knowing how to change course, knowing how to change the path. If you know that you're trying to reach a goal and you keep having roadblocks, find a different way to get that. And someone who is self-aware, they're going to know how to find an option B or an option C. They're not going to just stop and fail right away. They also consider mistakes as learning opportunities. They can learn from their past, think about what did I do, what didn't work, and what can I do going forward. We understand how we feel. Feelings are important, or our preferences are important. So we understand how those contribute to the big picture and then how we can respond appropriately. And lastly, you can adapt to change. If you're self-aware, you have, again, it doesn't mean it's easy for you. It just means that you have the capacity to accept the change, to adapt to it, and to adjust. And it might be a process, and that is fine. But in a lot of people, when they experience change, they shut down. Nope, I'm done. I quit. Or this isn't for me anymore. But self-aware people, they can see that big picture. They can visualize, and they're open to learning. And these are just some of the things that a self-aware person is capable of. So I have a simple equation of what conflict is. Typically, when people think of conflict, and I said this earlier, they think of a winner and they think of a loser, and that is what it has to be. And It's so much more for a person who is self-aware. A person who's self-aware doesn't care about winning, and they certainly don't want someone to lose because they want to reach that resolution, and resolution is the goal. Here is a very, very non-complicated definition of conflict. It exists when one person has a need of another and that need is not being met. Again, it exists when one person has a need. So I have a need, my need is not being met, and now that's my problem. I have a need and another, it's not happening. So how can we fix this? I have 2 steps. And if you're taking notes, that's fantastic. You also are going to get a kind of a cheat sheet from today's session that I built, and Nathan will be sharing that. So if you are writing this information down, you will have a copy of all of these slides I put onto one handout, and that will be getting shared with you after our session. But here is a quick 2-step process on how you might be able to resolve conflict. Because again, the goal for a self-aware person is not to win the disagreement, it's to reach a resolution, to stop the conflict. Because if there's a winner and a loser, the likelihood of the conflict continuing to escalate, it's there. The loser wants to keep coming back, and the winner wants to prevent that. So if we can work towards a resolution, that is what the ultimate goal is. So step 1, express the need. And I'm going to give you here an example after I go through these steps, and then we'll kind of work through those examples together. So step 1, I have a problem. Let me express the need. Step 2, find out if the need can be met. A lot of times when we experience a conflict or a different disagreement, we go into avoidance style, which is one of those 5 styles. We compromise, we quit. But if we can be calm and rational and have a purpose as we're trying to reach a resolution, we'll be so much more efficient and effective in our day-to-day lives and in our professional lives. So express the need, step 1, find out if the need can be met. If the need is met, your problem is solved. And if you handled it rationally and calmly, oh, fantastic. If it's not, now it's time for us to solutionize. So here's a couple examples of how we can use that step 1 and step 2 factor. Let's say your company has my husband works at Nebraska Furniture Mart. During the Thanksgiving to Christmas time frame, he is mandatory, no days off. I mean, that is retail, so no days off. So he, besides your 2 days off. So he wants to take a day off, and he realizes I need Friday afternoon off. My kid is singing in some school event. He has a need. His need is, I need the Friday afternoon off. He needs to first find out if the need can be met. Well, company policy states that you cannot take that day off, but does he have another path? Absolutely. Now he can get mad, call in sick, and maybe accrue points against him. That would not be a very good resolution. So expressing the need, going to his supervisor, Steve, I need Friday afternoon off. Is there any way I can have it off? Oh, I'm sorry, Spencer, you can't have the Friday afternoon off. We don't have enough staff. Okay, so he asks if the need can be met. It can't. So now he needs to come up with a resolution because it's important for him to get to his son's event. Okay, Steve, I know that it's company policy for me to not have Friday off. However, am I able to find someone to come in and fill in for me? And that's a resolution. Then he has the chance to give it to Steve. Steve can say yes or no. And if it's yes, sure, if you can find someone to cover, you're fine to take off. If he says no, back to resolution. What about if I come in on Sunday, which is my normal day off, and work instead of Friday afternoon? Or if I switch shifts with someone, is that an issue? But the situation becomes kind of like a mathematical equation. How do you find a resolution and brainstorm solutions? I see something in the chat. Oh, sorry. Another example is if you didn't get a promotion. We all have those interviews where we're pretty confident we're going to get the position. It goes to someone else, and now I'm mad. I'm disappointed. I'm mad. I'm feeling the hot and flush that we were talking about in symptoms. Now what? Well, my need is I wanted the promotion. So I'm not going to march to my boss's office or the hiring manager and say, give me the job. But think long term. People who are self-aware, they can think about the big picture. So what would be a solution? I go to the hiring manager and I say, I feel like I had a great interview. Can you give me feedback on why I wasn't a good candidate to get this position? And then develop a plan. Okay, well, they said that they want you to have more leadership experience. They want you to have more professional development. So ask them, what classes can I take to make me better suited for this? So the next time there's an opening, I'm qualified. And now you have an arsenal of tools and a path to take. That's what a self-aware person will do. To solve conflict, instead of internalizing it and say, my life is terrible, I'm not meant for this, life is going downhill, you find a way to solutionize. It might not be instant, and life is not instant gratification, but a self-aware person can make a schedule, they can make a path, and they can solutionize how to get their goals to happen. And again, it might not be instantaneous, but you have to express the need. I really wanted that promotion and was disappointed I didn't get it. Can you help me figure out how I would be a better suited for that role once the next opening happens? And then have your action plan and begin working on those goals.
And Paula, yes. And Paula, I don't mean to interrupt here. Just quickly, we did get some feedback in the chat about your meeting control bar, and that maybe you can just move that a little bit. It is interfering with your share screen presence.
Is it this thing right here?
There's a gray box towards the top.
Where I'm seeing the people?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that better? I'll just take it away. It's my own thing. I'm used to seeing myself on here. We'll just hide my video panel. Is that better?
Thank you so much. Yes,
yeah, no
appreciate
problem.
it. Thank you so much.
All right, no problem. Let's jump back into Kahoot. We're going to do questions 4 through 6, and we're going to look at some statistics about self-awareness and a little bit about how much does conflict cost companies and how much time does conflict typically cost people on a day-to-day basis. So let's do the next 3 questions, and I will hope people are in there. We're going to go to the next question. Psychologist Tasha Eurich found that 95% of people think they're self-aware. Research shows what is the actual percentage? All right, so it is actually 10 to 15%. Tasha Eurich is one of the leading researchers in self-awareness. And as I was putting this together, I pretty much focus on typically self-esteem and goal setting. That's kind of what I teach in my classes at Metro. And so when I was jumping into self-awareness, I found a lot of research by Tasha Eurich. And so I kind of started jumping into some of her content, some of her books. She had articles on Harvard Business Review, but 10 to 15% in her findings. So people oftentimes think that they are much more self-aware than they really are. And according to her research, they're not going the full length. They're not really analyzing and reflecting on what they did and what they can do better. And it's not as deep as it should be. And so if you can look up anything about her, Tasha Eurich, amazing. And she has some really rich recent data that I would highly encourage looking up. But her findings are 10 to 15%. Let's look at the next question, which is going to be, what does conflict typically cost our organizations annually? According to the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, what was the cost of conflict in the workplace? Hey, so no one guessed 5 or 25 million, so great. $50 million annually is what the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission estimates that conflict costs. And remember back to our question earlier about what are the main reasons or the main pieces of conflict that happen in the workplace? Ego, stress, and heavy workload. That is all contributing to this $50 million, where people are taking time off of work, or they're at work, but they're not working. They're stealing company time. They're taking breaks. They're engaging in conflicts and disagreements with their coworkers. They're hanging out in the break room. They're too overwhelmed or stressed to know what path to go on. But all of these things are contributing to over $50 million in the cost of companies face in conflict annually. And the last question for this round, what's the average amount of hours per week that U.S. employers spend on conflict at work? So the average amount of hours that employers spend on conflict at work. Okay, it is 2.8 hours a week. So almost 3 hours of a week in that, 40 to 50 hour work range is dedicated to being stressed out, being overworked, having an ego, having disagreements, avoiding conflict. So again, $50 million and 2.8 hours a week per person on average. It's not just costing the companies issues, it's costing yourself. I mean, putting yourself in that state of conflict, it's not healthy. What gets the adrenaline up, it is just not a healthy feeling. And when you think back to all those symptoms that you guys shared earlier, it is an uncomfortable place to be, and to spend 3 hours a week on minimally, it's a lot. So let's get us back into our presentation. Thank you for doing those, and we will come back to Kahoot one more time before we go today. All right, so I've mentioned this so much. The goal is resolution. The goal is not to be the winner in the debate or the disagreement. The goal is not to be the loser. The goal is, how do we get to a place where we are resolving it and there's no more conflict, there's no more disagreement. So strong self-awareness, which is that ability to think, reflect, know our feelings, know our preferences, has shown you have increased abilities to reach a resolution. You have more control, more self-control. You have more ability to ask questions and seek to be understood and understand the person that you're working with. These are questions that you could ask that a person that's self-aware would do to help reach that resolution. What could I have done to improve that situation? This is reflecting and thinking back on a past maybe disagreement or a past meeting or a past engagement that you had with someone. And you're taking that time to think, all right, here's what happened. Here was the way the meeting progressed. What could I have done to improve that situation? Our meeting took 45 minutes. It probably could have taken 30. What could I have done differently? How do I take some accountability for myself in this situation? Next time I meet with this person, I will do this. So having a plan before you go to the meeting, or having a plan before you have a work interaction with someone, and knowing that here's what my contributions are going to be, and here's how I'm going to mitigate that situation. Another example of something a strong self-aware individual will say is, what changes can I make to reach a resolution? And that leads me to this piece. You are empowered when it comes to a conflict. This is probably one of my favorite things about conflict and self-awareness. You have no control over the person you're talking to. You can't control their words, their actions, their body language. But the beauty in this is you have the ability to choose how you respond and react to that situation. And I want to just give you a moment to just think about that. Again, in personal lives, in our professional lives, we cannot control how someone responds to us. We cannot control how they speak to us, how they talk to us, how they look at us, what they go and say after we're done with them. But we have all the power to choose how we respond to them. We can choose to avoid the situation. We can choose to go for it head on. We can choose to use calmness and work towards de-escalating a situation. If we work towards winning, that's when there's going to be a problem, especially if you're working to win against someone by being disparaging towards them, by being condescending towards them, by using phrases and words that are going to escalate the conversation. Again, you cannot control what someone says to you or how they say it to you, but you have all the control on how you respond. And sometimes if we think back to those 5 different conflict management styles, there are some cases where the avoidance style is necessary. If someone is getting escalated and you feel like this is not going to be, we are too emotional to reach that resolution, it's perfectly acceptable to take a pause and say, I'm choosing right now to take a pause. Let's take a 5 or 10 minute break, and we'll come back when we can both be calm, and then return to the problem. Because that is that type of avoidance is a proactive avoidance. You are preserving your own sanity, you're preserving your own mental health, and you're empowering yourself to say, I'm okay to avoid this for the moment, and let's come back when we can reconvene in a calmer manner. But the beauty in this empowerment is that you get to choose how you respond to these situations. And there is some supreme comfort in knowing you have the ability to respond how you choose. It's not easy, and I don't want to make it seem like it's easier than it really is. It takes years to cultivate having someone speak to you in a way that you don't enjoy, and then coming back more responsible and mature to reach that resolution. But you can do it. You have the power to do that in your personal life and in your professional life. So there's a strategy I want to talk to you about that really, really helps when you're getting down on yourself. And for someone who is self-aware, this phrase is incredibly useful when you're trying to figure out how can I be accountable and how can I grow. So it's using the word why versus what. And in this situation, and this was something I learned about from Ms. Urich, the researcher of self-awareness, is using the word what. Why is a problem, and let me show you why. So here's an example of someone who's down, and they say, oh, why do I feel so terrible? This is not desired if you are looking towards self-awareness. Instead, the option that you should consider is what are the situations that make me feel terrible? Now, when you rephrase it that way, you are using your own resolution skills to, whether you write down a list of what the situations are that make you feel terrible, and you are able to solutionize how to fix this. When you go with just, why do I feel so terrible? You're being the victim. And when you go with, what are the situations that make me feel terrible? You can identify those situations and then create an action plan. And that is what someone who is strong in self-awareness is able to do. They can see futuristically, they can see big picture, and they are taking an active role in their life. They're empowering themselves to find what is not working and change it. The other example of a non-desired question is if you're in a performance review and after your performance review, why did you say this about me in my performance review? Instead of that question, here is what you can say in the what format. What are the steps I need to take in the future to do a better job? Just like the first desired response, you are now taking some accountability for your situation, and you are making an action plan to reach professional growth. You're owning the situation, and you're owning how you can move forward and how you can make a positive resolution. All right, let's do our last four. We're going to do a couple that are in the about the 5 different management styles. I'm going to give you some scenarios and have you pick which scenario of conflict management you see as the style being used. And then I'm going to have 2 questions that are open-ended that are going to ask you to take a situation and write a what question for that response. So let's do the scenario-based questions first. All right, an open-ended question. You've received negative feedback from your supervisor. Write a realistic what question. You've received negative feedback from your supervisor. Write a realistic what question. All right, let's see what we've got. Thank you for those. Okay, what can I do to improve my performance? Excellent. What can I do to improve on XYZ? Pout? No, we're not pouting. What can I do to do a better job in the future? Excellent. What situations or examples lead to that feedback? That's a beautiful question. And then following up with how can I not repeat it? Fantastic. Again, that's a double question. And it's going to show that you're making a plan to improve. You're showing that you're making an action plan and you have goals. You're not blaming your supervisor for giving you negative feedback. You're owning that feedback and you're finding a way to improve. What did I do to receive this negative feedback about my work? Yep. What proactive strategies, I love that word, can I implement to avoid or minimize these issues moving forward? I love that word. What are steps I can take to do a better job? And then what can I improve on and what programs can assist me? Especially, that's a great question. If you work for an organization that offers free professional development or they have an internal training. I worked at Kiewit and Companies for a little while as a learning manager, and they offered so many learning opportunities for their staff to go during the workday and look up different programs that would help them emphasize their goals for the workplace. And I think that if you have something like that, that is something to use internally. Fantastic. So great job on these. Let's do one more what question. You're in a job that you find yourself disliking more and more each day. Write a realistic what statement. So you're in a job, you're miserable, you find yourself disliking it. Write a what statement. Some questions that are proactive and that will help you make an action plan is what we're looking for. We want to get out of this mindset of being a victim and I hate my job. Why is this job so terrible? And write some proactive statements that can help you define a plan and make an action plan and move forward. So let's, 7 answers. Let's see what we've got here. Some what questions. All right, what do I have control over and what can I do to improve my outlook? Excellent. What do I dislike about this job and what do I like about this job? I love that. You got 2 what statements going on there and you can generate a list and kind of work that back and forth to devise a plan. What can I do to improve my viewpoint on the type of work I'm doing? What will make this more enjoyable? I love the 2 questions in there. What are some things that I would like to do instead? What parts of this job are good? What is it that I am not liking about it? What can I do to make it interesting for myself? I love that. If you dislike your job, what is the goal? Is your goal to be interesting? And I love that you incorporated that phrase into your question. What aspects of my job make me dislike and what can I do to improve? What aspect, again, I love the word aspect, of this position do I dislike and can I do something about it? And then what can I do differently to change the environment or my perception of the environment? Fantastic. These are awesome questions. The last couple we're going to do are based on those 5 different conflict management styles. So competing, harmonizing, collaborating, compromising, and avoiding. So there's a couple scenarios and you just have to pick which conflict management style is being utilized. After several meetings of reaching no consensus, the department head makes a final decision. Which style has occurred? After several meetings of reaching no consensus, the department head makes a final decision. Which style has occurred? So actually, it is going to be competing, and I see a lot of more folks have picked avoiding. So several meetings occurred and there was no consensus, so the department head makes a final decision. And one of the pieces and components of competing is it's an authoritative approach. So they tried to have meetings, there wasn't a consensus, and they just put their hand down and said, all right, I'm deciding for us. So that would kind of fall into that competing category. Avoiding would be say, let's delay this and we'll decide later. So avoiding would just completely avoid a response and keep delaying. So this would be a competing one. The boss just said, we're done, I'm deciding. Here's another scenario. Tom's customer wants a refund. Tom offers to provide in-store credit to make it right. Which style is being used? So it is compromising. The customer comes in and they want a refund and Tom's offering to give them in-store credit. So it's not exactly what the customer wanted. I'm sure the company doesn't also want to lose out and give all the refund back. So they're both giving up a little bit where the store is still having to give something and Tom is getting not exactly what he asked for. So it will be compromising. And our very last one, During disagreements, Laura takes time asking questions, taking notes, and listening. What is her conflict style? All right, so she is taking time to discuss, to have an interaction. She's taking notes. She's making her employees feel validated and like they are contributing members. So this would be that collaborating method for solving conflict. So let me get out of here and get back to our presentation. Thank you for participating in those, and I hope that kind of helped reinforce some of those. Just some last things to remind you of. So some methods to achieve conflict resolution. Ideally, you want to get to that collaborative state, and you can't do that if you're rushed. So if you have any control over the time that you're working on something or how long you wait to before a decision needs to be made, it's better to work earlier than to save things where you are going to be rushed, because that is not going to get you to a state of collaboration. Maintaining neutral emotions. Anytime we have escalated emotions, your conflict resolution is going to plummet. Stay fact-driven and stay away from emotionally driven responses. And if you need to, temporarily step away to de-escalate that situation. And I know that I said this before, but I just wanted to share this last empowering message again. You get to choose how you respond and react to situations. Know that you have control over yourself and how you decide to move forward and become self-aware. So that is my take today. I would love to, if anyone has any questions, to take some opportunity to answer, but I thank you so much for this moment and to be able to be here with you today.
Paula, we really appreciate the time as well. Thank you very much. I certainly learned a lot. And I would like to engage our attendees as well to see if you could give a thumbs up if you were appreciative of the Kahoot element. We'd love to engage with our alumni and community further. And I certainly thought it was a great idea. And Paula, thank you very much for putting that together. But if you can give a thumbs up that you enjoyed that portion, that would be great feedback on our end. In terms of a question that we have listed in the chat here, I do have one on my end that I'd love to get started off with. What conflict resolution strategies would you offer a young professional who is in a position of leadership at their company or organization, particularly managing a team of professionals with varying level of experience and background?
So I think it's critically important that the listening comes in. For a new person who's going to be managing a team out of college, it's sometimes received, if they haven't earned their spot in an organization, they might perceive you haven't done your time to be my boss. And I think the biggest thing a new manager can do is listen, ask questions, and learn, and have an open door policy. I think coming in with your plans to change and reorganization or restructure a company is going to halt some of the team morale. And I think taking that step to get to know your people, ask them questions, listen, they are the experts in the job that they do, and to learn what they do so that you can manage them effectively. One of the best pieces of advice I learned when I was working at Union Pacific Railroad, I was a recent graduate, I was 24 years old, and I was in a role that I was managing a operations management training program. And I was the youngest person on my team, and it was overwhelming. And I went to my boss had a policy where it was a completely open door policy, but one of my favorite phrases that I've used since then is, he said, you can come to me anytime with a problem, but come to me with one or two solutions. And if you need help coming up with to confirm your solution, I will help you, but I need you to not come to me until you've at least thought of one or two options that are viable, and then we'll work through it together. And so that helped empower me to just brainstorm on my own before I rushed to an office to talk to someone. And then we were able to work that out. And most of the time when I found myself stepping back to think about it on my own, I was able to come up with my own solution, but without having to engage or talk to him. So that is listen, ask questions, build understanding before you go in and try to restructure an organization.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Paula. And then another question that we have here, would you say that, and this is, are you familiar with the Gallup top 5 strengths? And if so, would you utilize that, or how would you utilize those top 5 strengths to deter workplace confrontation?
So Gallup strengths are something that Metro is very, very involved with. In fact, I just led my Gallup strengths workshop last night in my human relations skills class. So anywho, yes, I know my top strengths. It's actually something I share on my LinkedIn profile because it's such a familiar system in place that when people go and check out your LinkedIn, if that's my banner, it kind of resonates with people. But using those strengths, seeing what your strengths are and asking yourself if positivity is one of my top 5. So I would ask myself, how is positivity going to help me communicate? How is it going to help me be a better team player? How is it going to help me solve a problem? If I have one that is harmony, again, kind of the same line, strategy or strategic. How is being strategic going to help me solve a problem? So I would want to look at the elements of my strengths and then ask myself what components. I would go and do a deep dive on, I would Google the strengths and the definitions, and I would go into it with the mindset, how does this particular strength, how is being deliberative or how is having woo helpful for me to resolve a conflict? And that's the big thing, resolution. Again, we so much want to have an argument with someone and have a winner and have a loser, but when we're in the workplace and really when we're in our personal lives, we should strive for resolution because our emotions aren't going to be as up and down. We're going to preserve our own mental health, but to strive for a resolution where we are not escalating it, we're using calm words and we're trying to get to that resolution.
So, well, thank you very much, Paula. I really appreciate that. And please, if anyone still has a question that they'd like to ask, that we certainly have that open. In the meantime, I would like to just notify everyone again, we did have some technical issues on my end with the recording portion of this webinar. So there was a quick kind of overlap or break there. So that being said, for anyone that joined us later than that, I do just want to remind, if you do want a free UNO alumni pin, that you can just reply to the email you received from us confirming your registration for this webinar, and we will mail that your way soon. In addition, Paula and I will be providing some of the materials she discussed in this webinar after this webinar, so we will be sending that to your email. So if you have any questions or follow-ups, please note that that is coming to you. And with that, Paula, I would just like to say thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. This was all great stuff. I also want to say thank you to all of us who, to all of you that joined via Zoom. And again, if you came in late, it will be posted to the YouTube page, UNO Alumni YouTube page. We also encourage everyone to join us for our upcoming Young Alumni Professional Series. We'll have ones in August, September, October, November, and December, and those are being formulated. In addition, please keep in mind that our Young Alumni Academy applications are live and the deadline for entries is August 31st. And also be on the lookout for more information regarding Homecoming 2021, coming soon to our website, Facebook page, and more. And with that, thanks again to everyone. Paula, thank you very much. Enjoy your afternoon and go Mavs.